Welcome to Creative Tien channel. Today I want to check the latest AI technology and see it will be any useful for machine knitting. Everybody is talking about how wonderful AI is. The robot can do anything for you. They can write your essay and replace your job. So today I want to check to see if they can write a knitting machine pattern for me. How good is the AI? Is it overhyped or is it really good? So I'm asking questions on the ChatGPT. Here I type in, give me an example of a lace shawl pattern on LK150 knitting machine, and let's see what it responds. They tell you the material, lace weight yarn, knitting machine, cloth weight, crochet hook, tapestry needle, and here is the pattern. First, set up knitting machine by cast down desirable number of stitches. You will start with 120 stitches, but feel free to adjust the width. And set the carriage to hold position, begin lace pattern, knit 4 rows in stockinette stitch, set carriage to knit to the right. Use a lace transfer tool to transfer carriage. Transfer the stitches as follows. Transfer stitch 1 from left needle to the adjacent right needle. Transfer stitch 2 from left needle to the adjacent right needle. Repeat until all stitches are transferred. And then knit 2 rows in stockinette stitch and set carriage to hold position. Repeat until desired number of times, depends on how long you want the shawl. When you're ready, cut the yarn, leaving a yarn tail, use crochet hook, pull the tail of the yarn through the last loop to secure the stitch, remove the shawl from machine carefully, and then weave it through the stitches along the edge to prevent unraveling, trim any excess yarn. And your lace shawl is complete. Give it a gentle stretch to open up the lace and block if desired. So that's the machine knitting pattern. And overall, it looks kind of impressive. It's very organized. First, you have material, you have pattern, and it has all the numbers. So it's step by step. But now there's a big problem. They didn't tell you what the lace pattern is. They just tell you the process. After you knit a 4 row of stockinette stitch, it says set the carriage to knit to the right. That's fine, I can put the carriage on the left side. And then use a lace transferring tool or transferring carriage. Transfer the stitches. The problem with LK150 knitting machine is that there's no lace transferring tool. You have to do everything by hand manipulation. But this pattern might work for other standard knitting machine with a lace carriage. But again, they didn't tell you the exact lace pattern. If for the punch card, you will need a lace punch card. Or if you want to do hand manipulation, you need some type of chart so you know which needle to select for lace transfer. Overall, the structure looks nice, but the actual detail about knitting a lace pattern, it just doesn't work. So maybe I can ask question differently and get a better pattern. Give me a lace stitch pattern on an LK150 knitting machine. Here is a pattern. It said row 1 knit all, row 2 purl all. Now I already see a problem. How can you purl stitches on LK150? It will be very time consuming to do the hand manipulation. And the row 3, knit 2, yarn over, knit 2 together, knit 1. This is a hand knitting pattern, not for machine knitting. For knit 2 together, you can do it on the knitting machine by hand manipulation. But yarn over is a little bit challenge. And let's keep going row 4, purl all, row 5, knit all, row 6, purl all, row 7, knit 1, yarn over, knit 2 together, knit 2, yarn over, knit 2 together, knit 1. That's for hand knitting. I think this will work if I do hand knitting, but for machine knitting, like a LK150 or any brother or single knitting machine, it's not easy to do. This is not a machine knitting pattern. Now let's try another one. Can you give a knitting pattern for a circular shawl on an LK150 knitting machine? Certainly, here is a knitting pattern for circular shawl on LK150. Material, worsted weight, machine, claw weight, crochet hook, tapestry needle. So all the materials are very similar. And the pattern here set for this circular shawl, you can start with 120 stitches. And number 2, set the carriage to hold. Number 3, begin the circular lace pattern. Knit 6 rows in stockinette stitch. Set the carriage to knit to the right. Use lace transfer tool. Transfer every other stitch from the left needle to the adjacent right needle, skipping 1 stitch in between. Okay, that can be done with hand transfer. Knit 2 rows in stockinette stitch. Set the carriage to hold position. Repeat this circular lace pattern section for desired number of times depending on how large you want the shawl. That makes no sense. First, that's the same problem with my first question, the pattern they generate for my first question, because there's no lace transfer tool or transfer carriage on LK150. So the transferring by machine will not work. And I can see if I follow this pattern, the transfer every other stitch to the next stitch, yes, it creates an open lace pattern. It's like a cast on every other needle. So it creates an open work. And then you knit 2 rows of stockinette stitch. And repeat the lace and the 2 rows of stockinette stitch until the length you like. But this will not create a circular shawl or circular shape. This will just be a rectangle. And it makes no sense to set the carriage to hold position because there's no partial knitting or any reason to put the carriage to hold position. So you can see the problem easily. So at the first look, this whole AI-generated pattern looks impressive. It has a lot of knowledge about knitting machine, but again, there are a lot of details that's wrong. So the good thing is that you don't have to worry about AI taking over your job or they are smarter than you. I think the AI, at least at this moment, they just gather information from internet and package it and present it to you. They don't really differentiate different types of knitting machine. So a lot of details are wrong or it will not work. If you do hand knitting, it will probably work better. Let me try the hand knitting. Please give me a hat knitting pattern. Here is an example. Cast on 88 stitches. Worsted weight yarn. You will need a circular knitting needle or double point needle. Here is the pattern. It looks like workable. Cast on 88 stitches using a circular needle. Place the stitch marker to indicate beginning of the round. Join the round circle. Knit in the round in K2, P2 ribbing pattern for 2 inches. Switch to stockinette stitch and continue until the head measures about 6 inches from the cast on edge. And then you start decreasing. And here is a decrease rung. The first rung is knit 6, knit 2 together. And keep repeating that. And the rung 2 is knit all stitches. The rung 3 is knit 5, knit 2 together. So this looks like a very standard head knitting pattern. So I can see the use of that. If you just want to knit some classic basic pattern by hand knitting, you can just ask question, maybe type in the yarn weight or the yarn quantity you have and the pattern you have in mind, and they can generate a pattern for you. So let me try the same question, but asking with lace weight yarn. Please give me a head knitting pattern with lace weight yarn. Let's see. Here's a lace weight yarn material. You can use 3.25 millimeter circular knitting needle or double point needle. Okay, look at the pattern. It says cast on 120 stitches. So that's good, because for the worsted weight yarn in the last example, we have 88 stitches. So at least they calculated for you. And everything else looks similar. You need a ribbon K2, P2 for 1 inch and switch to lace pattern. This one, they even give you a lace pattern here. It's 5 rows repeat. Round 1 is knit 2, yarn over, knit 2 together, P2. Round 2 and all even rounds, knit all stitches. So this is interesting because I have the word lace in the question. They even generate a pattern with lace. So this will work much better than the machine knitting pattern. So if you have yarn stash, you want to finish some project, I think it's a good idea to ask ChatGPT to come up with a pattern. Or if you know you want to knit for kids, certain age, and you have certain amount of yarn, you can ask, and they can give you an idea of the casting on stitches and general pattern ideas. But of course, I think it's better if you use it as a guide, because you cannot really trust everything on the internet, even if it's from AI, the super smart robot. And my idea about the AI, either the ChatGPT or other type of AI, such as the one from Microsoft Edge, they all gather information from internet. So they have their limits too, and they cannot be always accurate. But it's fun to brainstorm and come up with ideas. It feels like you are talking to a friend just to generate ideas. Your friend might be smarter than you in some areas, but they don't know everything that you are trying to do. So they can have suggestions, they can come up with ideas, but you still need to use your own brain. You still need to verify all the information. And I think this is super interesting. It does help a lot if you know how to use it. You cannot rely on the AI totally, but it can be kind of assistant, come up with a format, do the calculation. And if you ask the right question, or if you keep asking to verify the answer they give you, you can go to some very interesting places. They do remember your last question, so the second question can be a follow-up question to ask what's the meaning of the answer in certain part of the last question. And they do respond that way. So there's a lot of possibilities you can use with ChatGPT or any AI apps. And the ChatGPT is free. You can just open an account and try it. If you are a knitwear designer, I can see the use of coming up with a basic pattern and the structure and come up with different sizing or calculations. It can save you a lot of time. Or if you are a home knitter, you just want to generate a pattern without going through patterns from Ravelry or buying a pattern from Etsy. This can be a very useful tool. A lot of time we are just knitting very basic pattern, hat, scarf, gloves, or simple sweater. And once you have hand knitting pattern that works, it's always possible to convert it into a machine knitting pattern. So I'm pretty excited about the AI technology, but I'm not surprised that they make a lot of mistakes about machine knitting. I hope you find this interesting and give it a try. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and see you next week.